Hey, kia ora, Helen Browns here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you all have, excuse me, hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast, now episode number 1377. Today we're talking about 10 tips for finding birth records. So when you're looking for members in your family tree, where do you go to find birth records? So we're going to give you 10 tips to help you do that. So first of all, excuse me, probably got some popcorn tickling my throat. Here's a tip. Do not eat popcorn before you have to get on a live or video, anything like that. Make sure you eat it well before so the little husks and pieces can get out of your throat. Anyway, so start with the basics. Collect all of the information that you have about as an individual, such as their name, full name, and that's first name, any middle names, name or names that they have, their last name, if you have the date of their baptism, the location where the event occurred. This will help you narrow down your search when you're looking to locate the correct record. So the date of birth or baptism. And they are two different dates. And some baptism records will list the birth date in there. Some baptisms may not happen until years later. My third great-grandfather wasn't baptized until his fifth birthday. Five. He was 5 when he was baptized. And they happened to have on there his birth date. So we were able to get his birth date from that. Number 2, check family records. Family records such as family Bibles. If anybody's got any certificates laying around, you would be surprised. They may have a box that they're buried at the bottom of. There may be some special little box that's got important documents in there. Look through all of those to find out if there are any family records there. Some people may have put them into archive sleeves and put them into binders just to organize them a little bit, and they may not even realize that they're there. You'd be surprised where people put information. You may even find a birth certificate or a baptism record tucked away in a book. And I just mean a book. No special book or anything else. So check family records. If you've got somebody who keeps a family Bible with all the births and dates and everything in there, awesome. That is awesome. Number 3, contact family members. Reach out to family members who may have more information or access to the records, especially older relatives who may have known the individual or their parents. So if you've got a grandmother, grandparents alive, or great-grandparents, or in some very rare cases, great-great-grandparents that you can ask this information of, remember, take your time with them, record it, get their permission to record, but set it up ahead of time and just take your time with them. Let them talk. You can also check with local churches. A lot of churches or parishes, they may have a region that's called a parish. They may have baptism records that they will have records of any baptisms that have been done, or baptism/christening, I should say, baptism or christenings that have been done in the church. They usually keep a record, like a logbook, of the name of the child that was baptized or christened. So baptisms and christenings, when we're talking about newborns, are roughly around the same thing. They may have in there the maiden name of the mother. What other records have I found on baptism records, baptism/christening records? I've found the full name that the child was christened with or baptized with. Some of them they've even listed who the godparents are. There's another record that you can have. Some of them will have the birth date on there as well as the baptismal or christening date. They may have the father's full name on there and the mother's maiden name only, or they may have the mother's full name on there with her maiden name. Maiden name is the name she was before she was married. So check with your local churches to see what records that they have, especially if it's in a place that you know that person was born in. Go back and have a look at their records and see what they have available. Check with local government. Number 5. Hang on. We got corn husks. Number 5. Check with local government officers. In many countries, counties, towns, cities, states, territories, vital records such as birth and baptism records are kept on by government agencies such as Department of Health or the Registrar's Office. Contact these offices to see if they have any records available. Now, when you contact these offices, they may have a restriction on there, so be prepared for that. And the restriction being that they cannot show you any birth records of anybody who is currently living, and they cannot show you any birth records of anyone whose birthday was less than 100 years ago, or if they are dead and they have died within okay, if they're dead, yeah, and some of them may have, with the death certificates, they may have to have been dead for 50 years before they'll let you see those, and because of that, it may also restrict your birth records as well, what ones you can see it. So when you're checking with your local governments, checks to see what their policies are regarding birth certificates, death certificates, and marriage certificates, because they may have, you can't see them. But if they are still living or they have recently passed and they are a direct descendant of yours, if you can prove that to the local office and everything else, the local government office, it will probably be on a paper application or an online application, and they have to see that you have to provide the records and everything that proves that that is your grandparent or great-grandparent, and that you're a direct descendant of theirs, before they'll allow you to see the records. In some cases, in some states here in the US, only the person whose birth certificate it is, if it's a living person, only that living person is allowed access to their birth records, nobody else. It doesn't matter if you are a son, a parent, a sibling. If that person is still alive, you cannot get access to their birth certificate. Only if they have passed can you get access to their birth certificate. And each state, territory, each state, each province, I'm trying to think, counties, towns, parishes, all of those different levels, depending which level of government it's in, they all have their own rules. So you may be in one part of, say, Georgia, in a county in Georgia, and they have one rule, and then you might go over to the next county because the county lines changed at some point. And so even though you thought your grandfather was born in this county over here, the lines changed and it was actually the county next door. And so you check at that one, they go, nope, we don't have it on file. You'll have to check over there because this is when the county lines changed, which was about the time your grandfather was born or your great-grandfather was born. So that's probably over in there. So and you've already found out from this one what they're if based on the time for their birth certificates, if you can get them. Then you go to the county next door and it's all like, yeah, we have those records, but you're not looking at them. Here's the paperwork that you have to fill out in order to get to them. So just be aware of that the rules can change from state to state, province to province, country to country, county to county, district to district, town to towns, or city to city to parish. They can all change. They can all have their own rules based on where they're at. So number 6, search online databases. Many genealogy websites and databases offer searchable records for births and baptisms / christenings. Some popular websites will be like Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org, and FindMyPast.com. And I will tell you, between the 3 of those, they're pretty good at helping you find that information. I'm trying to think of other ones. Maybe MyHeritage might be in there as well. But I definitely use Ancestry, Family Search, and Find My Past as resources when I'm looking for records. And I also have other subscriptions to other genealogy sites where I can use theirs as well. Like I'm researching Irish records and Scottish records and British records. So I have memberships to databases that are held in Scotland, Ireland, and England. And I don't have a Wales one. In order to be able to search their records to see if when I'm looking for records for my ancestors, and that has helped. And every now and again, you will get, if you're registered with those particular databases, they will send you a note to say, hey, we just uploaded this many from this particular county. And you're like, hey, no, that's not my county. Well, maybe. And you go and check out to see where the county was. Oh, it's next door to the one that I'm looking for. Let me go check. Because like I said, county lines change. Number 7, check in with historical societies. In any state, you'll find they've all got historical societies. They may have records of births or baptisms that took place in the area, especially if the family and the individual of their family was prominent in the community. They may have books written about those prominent families. I've got one client who her ancestors helped found a county in Indiana, and I was able to find a book that had kind of their history in there, as well as a newspaper clipping that was actually written by her third great grandfather about his life growing up and how he ended up in that area in order to help found that county. So it's interesting stuff. So check with historical societies. A lot of people, when they come across, when they're downsizing and nobody wants their family records and stuff, will send them to historical societies for them to keep on file for anybody who's looking for that information. Because it may be that generation don't really want to know, but future generations may. So they send them to historical societies so that they can preserve them and keep them on file, and they may scan them. They may have a central place that they send them the items to as well, and they may get scanned so that they're available online, or they can easily search them and that sort of stuff. So historical societies are great sources of information when it comes to records within the area or families that lived in that area. Even if the family wasn't prominent, they may have had some role in like founding that county or founding that town, or they may have been a business owner in that community as well. So there's all sorts of things, and they will have local newspapers articles as well. Number 8, check with libraries. And you might think, well, a library? What the heck would they have? Libraries. They are a great source of local information, kind of like the historic societies, but they have they maintain a lot of local newspapers, historical documents that may contain information about births or baptisms. They may have books on families. So you see some books that are written that follow a family on there for several generations. And they may have copies of those books because those people were based, have always been in that particular area, in that local area. So they'll have some of that as well. I have found books on I found family books in libraries. I have found newspapers. What else have I found in the libraries? I'm just trying to think back. Maps of the local area when they've had county changes and things like that. I found those in libraries as well. Usually you find the maps and stuff at like the local government levels and things, where you've got the plats and the layouts of the towns and stuff. But sometimes libraries can have that information too. So check with your local library. And then you may have libraries like Family Search, which is based in Salt Lake City in Utah, where they have a ton, and I mean probably more than a ton of information, but they have a lot of information there, and they have it broken up by regions, and they have searchable things, and they have books that, due to copyrights, they cannot scan them, but they have them indexed. And you can turn around and say, hey, I want to see this book, and they will go pull the book out of the archives for you so that you're able to sit there and have a look at it. But you're not allowed to copy it or anything else. You just have to take handwritten notes. So you've got libraries like that, not just your regular public library. You also have private libraries and university libraries, college libraries, like the Family Search Library. A lot of the different Mormon temples around will have a satellite family search library available at one of the local Mormon temples. They may have that. And then, so think about libraries, but not just the public library, but also other libraries that are within the area, whether it's associated with an association, if it's associated with a college or a university. Maybe it belongs to, it could be a private collection that you've heard about, and you write to the person and say, hey, I have heard about this. So, there's different libraries around, so check the libraries. Number 9 is hire a professional genealogist. If you're having difficulty finding those records, consider hiring a professional genealogist who can conduct research on your behalf and may have access to additional resources that you may not have access to. They may have professional genealogists have networks of genealogists throughout the country, throughout the world. And if they need somebody with boots on the ground, then it means somebody there in person to go and look at something, because like we said, there's stuff that's copyrighted that cannot be copied or scanned or anything like that. So if you've got somebody who, if a professional genealogist has somebody in that area, they can call them up and say, hey, can you go down to this particular, they have this particular document down there, but it's in this particular book and we can't get access to it because it has to be viewed on site. And they're like, absolutely. And they'll go down there. They may be able to take a copy of it there and then, or they will have to stand there and handwrite out all the information that's in there because the book cannot be copied based on whatever the copyrights are. And number 10 is be persistent. Finding birth and baptism records can be challenging. Trust me, ask me how I know, but don't ever give up. Be persistent. And like I said, with my third great-grandfather, when we found his baptism record, we finally got confirmation of his birth date. And from there, I was able to go and find his birth certificate because I now had a date. So baptism records can be very good with that, but it took us 3 years. It took us a long time to find that one. I hooked up with a cousin in New Zealand, a cousin in Australia, and the three of us were searching through records, and I suddenly stumbled across this one time, sent it to them and said, hey, what do you think? So I had another set of eyeballs on that, and we were able to confirm that, yeah, that sounds about right. And from there, we quickly found his birth certificate, his birth registration, because sometimes you don't get a certificate. It could be a registration in a book, and that's what it is. You may get the little piece of paper, but most of the time it's actually in a logbook, and you can in a register, like an actual book. And we're able to find it that way. And then from that registration entry, they were able to fill out the birth certificate to send us a copy of that because it had the information on there that we needed. So don't give up. You may not find it, searching for genealogy is not a quick thing to do. It does take time. So be prepared to take time. Schedule time in your calendar when you want to do your genealogy. And especially if you're looking for vital records, which are births, deaths, marriages, christenings, baptisms, those sorts of vital information, burial information. Remember we talked about cemetery records one time and what you can find on those. I love going to cemeteries. But, just take the time to remember it's not going to be a quick thing to look up. It is going to take time. How much time is it going to take? It depends on where the record is located, what information you are starting with. Newspapers are another. Newspapers. Now, newspapers are really cool because they have birth announcements in there. And they might put Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Mr. and Mrs. Paul Jones are pleased to announce their safe arrival of their son, and put the name there and when and where it was born. And then if you look a few days later, there'll be, Mrs. Paul Jones is heading home today with their newborn son. They're heading home and it'll actually list their address. So I gotta tell you, newspapers back in the time were so full of really cool information like addresses, or injuries that people suffered that put them into hospital, and and they gave you regular updates on how that person was doing and when they got released and they were returning to home at this particular address. And it was interesting. So it's been interesting to follow how newspapers have changed over times. There's still gossip magazines, I tell you. There's still gossip places. Because they would have like all the society news in there. But anyway, we'll get into it later. But you can find birth announcements in newspapers. Some areas will have them, some areas won't. But check out newspapers. Old newspapers, you might find a birth announcement in there. Again, starting with what you know. And the search is going to get easier with the more information you know to start with. I'm not going to say the easier way to do it, but you may get it done quicker than not having much information. Starting with the person's name. And, this is where I think that they were born. And they were this age when they passed away. And on their tombstone, it says that they were 97 years old, which will put them around there. So you then have to reverse engineer everything. Census reports are another good one too. Another good place to give you a starting point, because on there it'll be listed, if there's any new infants in the house on a 0 year, it may put there like 6/12, which means they were 6 months old, or 3/12, meaning they were 3 months old. So you can then know that the information is there as of you can look up the years that the census were done, because there was a few years where they did them on different dates and before they started standardizing what date they were going to do them on. But you'll know at that particular point in time, that baby was that old, which would put their birth date around this time. And that gives you another starting area where you can go and look up information as well. So that's it from me for today. Hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions on genealogy or even travel, just private message them to me. Happy to look up information for you. Happy to come back on here one day and answer those questions for you. So today we talked about 10 tips, but you ended up with a little more than 10 for finding birth records. Just remember that sometimes they weren't birth records, they were just baptism records, and they had no birth records because that's not what they did at that time. And when you go looking to look up places like go to, what's it called? Wiki Search, which is something that's done by the FamilySearch.org. They have a thing called Wiki Search that you can go in there and you can look up a country and you can get it down to like a county level, and it will tell you when they started, when it was required for them to start keeping records for births, deaths, marriages. Because some of them you're sort of like, why can I never find this? And you go there and you find out. So in those cases, if it's outside the required, when they had to start recording, church records are your best bet for finding information, for finding out about the baptism, the christening. Because like I said, some of those will actually have the birth date on them, along with the parents' names and the mother's maiden name and that sort of stuff as well. Anyway, I'm out of here. I got a puppy who was looking at me over her shoulder to say, can we please go? So go out and have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, Conetta.